So let's get started on our last business meeting this month. We're following up on being easy to work with, and today we're talking about your clients. And I think timing has to do with a lot of things. I had a different story, but I was reading Money Magazine last night and read a real interesting article about Arthur Gensler. Does anybody know who Arthur Gensler is? He created the world's largest architecture firm. Real interesting story. I'm not going to read it all, but this was one of his tips of advice, is listen to clients, respect them, become their trusted advisor so they hire you over and over again. If you help clients solve problems, you become more than a hired gun. And I'll share this quick little excerpt so you know what he did. He was a starving architect, and one day he was having a drink with a friend from Cornell who was developing the Alcoa building in San Francisco. And his friend asked if he could help him do some floor plans to attract some tenants. So he said he would, but he had to ask his boss, who he was working for, if he could also work part-time for his friend, work half the day here and half the day for his friend. And his boss said, well, of course. Well, then what happened? Tenants started coming through the building, and you're talking about a prominent building in San Francisco with prominent office tenants. And that led to him opening a Denver office and designing all these buildings around the world. He designed just to bring you up to speed, he designed all of the Apple stores. Facebook. These are just lists of some of his projects. Guy started his architecture firm with $200 with no business degree whatsoever. But I was reading through his short little story, and why they were talking about him is he has been ranked as one of the world's 50 greatest leaders. Not because of their wealth and what they've accomplished, but in the manner in which they accomplished it. So, just starting part-time. And he has, oh my gosh, how many offices around the world? It's amazing. So I thought that was very interesting, is just about listening to clients. And we talked about that some last week too. In trying to be easy to work with other agents. But I also want to talk about tension and friction. This is rock climbing, where tension and friction will put you on the edge of life and death. Tension and friction are two very basic elements of rock climbing. Rock climbing, you have very tacky rubber, sticky shoes. You can actually rub the shoes together and hold them up, and they will stick to one another. They are that sticky to create as much friction as you can. Tension, you've got to have tension in your rope as you're ascending, so that if you do slip and fall, you don't fall too far. But then also when descending, to control the rate at which you descend. You've also got to have a chalk bag so that your hands stay dry, so you can create friction with your hands and the rock so you don't fall. But we do not need friction and tension between our clients. We are trying to hold on to them, but we don't need to create that. But sometimes it enters into the relationship. Where do tension and friction appear most often? And how do we reduce or eradicate their presence? Well, one thing is, sometimes agents have failure to understand the other party. And that's just a matter of asking the right questions so you understand their situation. Because is any situation with the client ever the same? Everybody is unique. You could have a neighborhood full of 200 homes that are only 3 different floor plans. And I'd be willing to bet every one of those homeowners has a different situation. And so you've always got to help them understand is what does someone like them do in a situation like this. It's the same thing when you're going to list their home or when you bring them an offer to purchase their home. Just because you think it's a reasonable amount, how will that be perceived by them? What should someone in a situation like theirs do now? And if you don't understand your client's unique situation, you can't effectively represent their interest. Because y'all remember last week we talked about money is a reward for what? Thank you, Eddie. You can't solve problems if you're not a good listener. It's hard to know how you can help someone if you haven't taken the time to really understand their situation. And communication. You mean give them an update that there's no update? Absolutely. Hey, I'm just calling to tell you there's no update. Y'all know that this is still, I'm amazed. This is still the number one thing clients complain about when you ask them, in the past, working with a real estate agent, what areas were you most disappointed? They don't usually say more than one area. They say one area, communication. I didn't hear from you. No one ever says, oh my gosh, do you know Alan called me like every single day? Because no agents ever do that. They never do that. Agents generally are very bad at giving the correct amount of communication. It may be that there's nothing to actually talk about. It may be they feel bad that they didn't understand something about their client. But as we talked earlier, it's not about what you say, it's how you say it. And y'all remember this from last week too. It's just the manner in which you cover it. Listen, some listings are not going to be shown every day. Some aren't going to be shown every week. And depending on how unique they are, some aren't shown every month. And that's just a fact. But you have to communicate what's going on, even if nothing's going on. Because the worst thing that could happen is your client forms your own opinion about what you're not doing. Because if you don't at least tell them what you're doing, what do you think they will... Like, if you don't say, hey, I called 20 people and they all hung up on me when I started talking about your home. If you don't call and tell them you at least did something, they think you've done nothing. So communication is an area that can help you reduce friction. Normal business hours. Yes, real estate has normal business hours sometimes. Not 9 to 5, okay? We don't clock out at 5 o'clock, but it doesn't have to be 24/7. Y'all would be surprised how many agents or people interested in becoming an agent ask about normal business hours. A lot of them are coming from an industry where they don't have normal business hours, where they are fixed at a location and they can't control it whatsoever. But we're in real estate because we wanted to control our time. And if you don't take control of it somehow, then you are going to be working 24 hours a day. And I want to give you a quick example. Sometimes we rely on the contracts to dictate when we work, right? You present an offer and it's set to expire at, you write in 5 p.m. on Friday the 21st. And they respond and accept it before then. And you have a 15-day due diligence period. Well, when does the due diligence period actually expire? Does anybody know? No, the actual time, the time of day. Midnight. Okay? So not at 5 p.m. on the 15th day, it's midnight. So if you're not proactive about getting things to the lender or having inspections done, and now Friday happens to be the 15th day of your due diligence period, and you're representing the seller, you could be waiting around till 11:45 p.m. on a Friday night to find out if they're going to terminate the contract. You don't have to do that. You can write in a time in the special stipulations that due diligence period will end at this time. force their hand to do something the day before. But if we keep depending and relying on the other agent to not ruin our weekend, I would not count on that. Your weekend's probably going to get ruined if you don't plan. But it's a very simple thing you can do. Just have it expire. It says midnight because most people do not write in a time. So if you write in a time, then due diligence will expire on the 15th day at this time. Then you've got full control over your schedule, because I promise you, your client does not want to sit around and plan their time from 5 p.m. to midnight waiting by email or the phone or a fax to see if something's come in. Now, I know there are situations where you can't control that, but you should make an effort to put a time period in there. And check your calendar dates. If you don't want a due diligence period or a time limit offer to end on a Sunday evening because your client's going to be out of town, you need to follow up with the other party and let them know. Communication is so important in trying to create or achieve normal business hours. We may never have normal business hours where things just stop and end at a certain time because we're available whenever our clients need us. But you've got to try to put more control on that if you want to have it, because your clients do. They don't want to be freaking out that the last 2 weeks everything's gone smooth, but it's Friday and we haven't heard anything. And they know that you've been calling, asking for an update, asking for an amendment or something, but the other side just hasn't responded yet because they don't have to. So we want to prevent friction and tension from entering the relationship. Everyone we talk to that gets in this business, even if it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, they wanted to have a work-life balance. We work so hard to achieve that. We can do some simple things to actually accomplish it. And if you follow these 3 tips, you'll receive praise, accolades, referrals from your clients, because what will they say? Alan was so easy to work with. You should call him. No one says, I had a really difficult time working with Alan on the sale of my home, and I really think you deserve to have a difficult time too. Here's his name and number. He would love to work with you. No one wants that. We want to be easy to work with, and we want to attract clients that are easy to work with, right? We will solve whatever problem we have to, and that's within our means to get the deal done. But we'd also like to attract folks that understand how it can be easy to work with. But you've got to set that precedent from the very first appointment with them. And if you want to attract them, then you've got to be attractive too. Start becoming an agent that's easy to work with, and you will attract other clients. Your clients will refer you people that are easy to work with. We've seen it happen. Oh my gosh, you've got to call so-and-so. They made it so easy to sell our house. Now, you didn't tell them every single thing you did, because we know sometimes it's difficult. But the way you communicate, the way you work with the other agent, where you cooperate, you made your clients feel like it was the easiest transaction they were ever involved with. And that's true success, is getting them to believe and feel that you are easy to work with, because that's what we want to be. Every client's looking for it. So it's not that hard. You just got to work a little extra, and you can become the agent that everybody wants to work with. We appreciate y'all working with us. We'll email this out so you can have some more tips too on how to become easy to work with. Thank y'all.